Commissioner Brooks.
Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Commission and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Alrighty. Now is the time for public comment. Public comment, you have 3 minutes to go ahead and bring anything forth that you'd like to. If it's something that is on the agenda later on, you may want to come in at that time, but please come forward. Denny? Okay, great. Thank you. Please sign in and state your name.
Good afternoon. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for Carson City. I just wanted to come and make the commission and anyone listening aware that we are doing a Carson River Master Plan amendment. So the original Carson River Master Plan was written in 1996, so it's due for an update. So we've been working with the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program for the last few years. And we've just gotten to kind of our public outreach and stakeholder engagement portion of the master plan update. So the survey is up online. It can be found at carson.org/river survey. And I did leave a flyer on the back table that has a QR code that'll take you right to the survey. And it'll be open through September 23rd, but we would just invite anyone who uses the Carson River or lives near it, or just enjoys the river for what it offers, to please take that survey for us. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, and then any other public comment? Seeing none, possible action approval of the minutes for July 31st, 2024. Okay. Tomorrow, all of our screens have gone black. Okay. Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the minutes of the July 31st, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
No.
Oh, okay, no, okay,
Delayed.
you're just delayed. Okay, great, thank you. Then Minutes approved. Okay, going on to meeting item number 6, 6A LU 2024-0200 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding an appeal of the Community Development Director's denial of a building permit for a 62-foot tall amateur radio tower on property zone single-family 1 acre SF1A located at 1630 South Deer Run Road, assessor parcel number APN 010092-4. Heather.
Thank you, Heather Ferris, for the record. I'm unable to toggle to my PowerPoint at the moment, but it's not important for this particular item. This item was originally scheduled to be considered by the Planning Commission at their June 26, 2024 meeting. The applicant requested at that time a continuance to the August Planning Commission meeting and to allow his attorney time to provide additional information related to the request. On August 11th, 2024, the applicant's attorney submitted a substantial amount of additional information. Therefore, staff is requesting the Planning Commission remand the issue back to the Community Development Director for further review and consideration. The applicant, Michael Vicari, is here and would like to address the commission.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the Commission. In the recommended motion, I would ask of the Commission that establish some type of timeline or,
It's on. It's on. Turn it. Hit it again. Hit it one more time. There you go.
okay, there we go. Oh, okay, can you hear me now? Okay. How's that? All right. Okay. I am the applicant associated with this agenda item, and I ask that the commission give consideration to establish some type of timeline if they approve the recommendation to submit it forward to the community director for review. Okay? Thank you.
Any questions of the commissioners? Seeing none. You don't really have any conditions of use or anything, just to motion?
No, at this time, staff is not ready to make a recommendation due to the amount of information that we did receive. We need additional time to review that.
Okay, so is staff asking us to go ahead and then forward this on to the Community Development Director?
Staff is asking that you remand it back to the Community Development Director. This was an appeal of staff's denial of the building permit for the amateur radio tower. So we need additional time to review the information that the attorney provided on Mr. Vicari's behalf so that we can determine whether or not our original decision will still stand, or if there's substantial information in there to possibly change our mind.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion?
Question.
Oh, okay.
As part of a regular appeal process, isn't there a timeline already associated with it?
Madam Chair, if I may, yes,
Certainly.
there is a timeline. What happened was this gentleman applied for a permit. We asked questions consistent with federal law. We received answers. Based on those answers, we made a decision. Since we've made that decision, supplemental information, a considerable amount of supplemental information has been submitted. Based on the new information that's been submitted, we are requesting you direct it back to staff so that we have a chance to work with the DA's office on the supplemental information in the context of federal law and determine whether or not the decision we initially made will stand, or if we have a different opinion based on the additional information. I appreciate the applicant's interest in moving quickly with this. We don't have an interest in not moving quickly with this. That said, given the amount of information and given that I'm not particularly familiar with the federal law, we looked it up, but We've received a lot of paperwork. I'm reluctant to commit to a time frame. We have to work with the DA's office and make sure we get to the right answer. All that said, I have no interest in delaying it, and that's the commitment I can make. I think the district attorney's office has comments.
This is Todd Reese, Deputy DA. I don't have any additional comments aside from what Hope said. There are timeframes associated with the application and the appeals process. Sir, I wasn't prepared for your exact question, so I can't tell you what the timeline is. I was trying to look it up real quick. But there are timeframes which we have to operate within.
Okay.
Any further questions?
You have an attorney on retainer?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any further questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Brooks?
No further questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir, because I can't see you. Okay, all right, then I would entertain a motion.
I'll move, all right. I'll move to remand LU-2024-0200 back to the Community Development Director for further review and consideration of the new information provided by the applicant.
I'll second.
Ready, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion- Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, I would like to go ahead and hear 6B and 6C together. And that would be LU 2024-0260 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a request for a special use permit, SUP, to allow for a marijuana production facility on a parcel zone general industrial GI located at 8001 Highway 50 East, assessor's parcel number APN 0086114, combined with item number 6C, LU 2024-0261 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a request for a special use permit, SUP, to allow for a marijuana cultivation facility on a parcel zoned general industrial GI located at 8001 Highway 50 East, assessor's parcel number APN 008-611-40. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather Ferris, again for the record. The subject property is approximately 4.97 acres in size and zoned general industrial. The property is currently developed with a marijuana cultivation and production facility. The original SUPs for marijuana cultivation and production were approved by the Planning Commission on March 25th, 2015. The current operators are in the process of selling the business to the applicant. Per Division 1.20 of the Development Standards, an SUP for a marijuana establishment is not transferable between operators and locations within Carson City. Therefore, a new SUP is required due to the change in operator in this case. The cultivation portion of the facility utilizes approximately 3,100 square feet of the existing 4,468 square foot building. The production facility encompasses the remaining 1,360 square feet. Per Carson City Municipal Code 18.04.150, both a marijuana cultivation and marijuana production facility are allowed in the general industrial zoning district, subject to first obtaining a special use permit and demonstrating compliance with Division 1.20 of the development standards. A detailed analysis of that compliance is included in the staff report, and I can go over any of those with you if you wish. There are 7 findings of fact that the Planning Commission must make in the affirmative in order to approve the special use permits. Staff has made all 7 findings and is recommending approval for both SUPs, subject to the conditions of approval, which are included in the staff report. I will note I am requesting 2 separate motions, one for each special use permit. We have not received any public comment related to this matter. And with that, I'm available for questions, and the applicant's representative, Paul Larson, is also here and may wish to address the commission.
Okay. And commissioners, do you have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Borders?
Heather, what is the water use on this facility? Is this? I
It is
know-
on well and septic, and they are state issued permits for
Okay.
well and septic.
All right. It was not one of our bad ones.
No.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Commissioner Commissioner Brooks? None?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'd like to hear from the applicant, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the commissioners for entertaining us this evening. My name is Paul Larson. I'm with the law firm Black and Wadhams, representing the applicant. I would concur with everything that Heather said in terms of summarizing the application. We're simply continuing the existing use. We don't propose any changes to the building or external signage, anything of that nature. There are 13 conditions that we concur with. One of those includes minimizing any odor that would escape from the production and cultivation facility. And as I said, we're in agreement with that. The only other change that might be possible as a result of the staff conditions is some additional paving on the outside. But that's about the only change, external change that anyone would notice from change of operators. So at that, we'd be very pleased with your approval this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Cron?
More for Heather, I guess. Now, does the sheriff's department have to clear the ownership change too, or is that not something the sheriff has to get involved with?
So I did reach out to the sheriff. They don't have to clear it through the special use permit process. I'm not familiar with the state licensing process, and Mr. Larson can probably speak to that. But through the special use permit process, we do collaborate with them, and I did reach out and did not get any negative comments back.
Yeah. Sir, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. For the record, Paul Larson, representing the applicant. The Cannabis Compliance Board has already considered the transfer of application and has approved it. In addition, we have to, once we have the use permit in hand, we have to present that to the city's, Carson City's business license department as well, and they investigate it and approve it as well. So this is near the next to the last step, but it's not the last step yet.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions, do you accept the conditions of use?
We accept all 13 conditions, yes.
Thank you. All right, and I'll take a motion, and they need to be done as two separate motions. Commissioner DeChristopher? Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. Is there any public comment regarding this? Seeing none. Okay, Commissioner DeChristopher.
I move to approve LU-2024-0260 based on the ability to make the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval included in the staff report.
All in favor?
I'll second.
It's been one of those days. Okay, second by Commissioner Lloyd. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. That was just the delayed aye. Okay, then this one was approved, and now take a motion for the second. Commissioner Lloyd?
I move to approve LU 2024-0261 based on the ability to make the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval included in the staff report.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. It is unanimous. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you so much. Okay, item number 6D, MPA 2024-2080 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a resolution approving a requested master plan amendment and recommending the approval of the amendment to the Board of Supervisors Board to change the master plan designation from low-density residential, LDR, to community commercial, C/RC, for a 3.64 acre parcel on the east side of Emerson Road at the southern terminus of Louise Drive. Assessor's parcel number APN 008-12338. Heather.
Thank you, Heather Ferris again. The subject parcel is triangular in shape and is located on the east side of Emerson Drive at the southern terminus of Louise Drive, adjacent to the I-580 right-of-way. The parcel has a master plan land use designation of low-density residential and a zoning of single-family 6,000. It is adjacent to single-family residences on the north. Generally, they're 1+ acre lots. Commercial properties are located to the southeast, and those are generally vacant. And then there is one that is developed as what appears to be NDOT's construction yard. And then 580 is to the southwest of the property. This is a remnant parcel from the freeway construction and was sold by the state of Nevada to the current property owner in 2016. The applicant is proposing a master plan amendment from low-density residential to community regional commercial to accommodate a single-use commercial planned unit development applied for concurrently, which is the next item on the agenda. There are 4 findings of fact that the Planning Commission must make in the affirmative in order to recommend approval of the master plan amendment to the Board of Supervisors. Staff has made all findings in the affirmative and is recommending approval. I can review all of those findings at your request, but I would like to go over finding number 2 in particular. Finding 2 asks whether or not the amendment will be compatible with existing adjacent land uses and whether there will be detrimental impacts to other properties in the vicinity. Staff was able to make this finding, noting that this would be an extension of the community regional commercial designation to the southeast. And it could possibly act as a transitional parcel between the residential uses and the freeway. The master plan also includes policies to help protect residential areas adjacent to the community regional commercial designated parcels, including buffering and transition spaces to minimize visual and noise impacts for residential areas. So at the time a project comes forward, the project would be required to provide for buffering to mitigate such impacts. The Planning Commission's action is a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Staff has not received any public comments related to this request. I'm available for questions, and John Krompotek is here representing the project.
Okay. John, you want to give us an overview? You want to give us an overview?
Yeah, I have a PowerPoint. Can I go through that? Is that what you
Sure.
mean? Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Krompotek. I'm representing this application and development. Michael Vicks is our civil engineer. We've been working on this since January to get it to this point. Thank you. Let me adjust this. Is that better?
That's better. Can you hear? Okay, talk. So-
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right, yeah, I think it's a lot better. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much. Am I managing my slides? Can I do it, just so I don't have to next? I'm going to jump around. Oh, don't worry about it. I thought you had a remote deal. It's fine. Okay. Next. I share this one with you. This is really basically an outreach map. I've noted each of the property owners' names to those 6 parcels adjacent to the north. I don't remember, it was less than 2 weeks ago, roughly 2 weeks ago, when we were fairly well down the road with staff. I wanted to touch base with the community, called them, emailed them, whatever it takes to make some connection to them. And I happened to at least touch base with every one of them, Mr. Arroyo going down the line, Mr. Keaton, Ms. Garrett, Mr. Ware and his wife, Mr. Menacidi and Ms. Nance. I think several of them, if not all of them, are here this evening, and we'll hear from them. Michael and I hosted a meeting last Tuesday. It was fairly brief. A couple of them wrote me individually, said they're not on board with this and didn't want to discuss it further. So I wrote them an email about what we thought are the merits of the project. In my recollection of that meeting, what we were trying to educate the community with is that we were actually in this land use selection, not the zoning, not the master plan, but this very precise land use as proposed for boat and RV storage was very specific with respect to trying to ensure compatibility with the neighborhood. That is why in the first time in my career, we put forth a single-use PUD as a commitment to say this is precisely what we want to do with all the design standards that go with it. And the other thing that was key to this use, what is the only way where we could avoid primary access to Louise Drive there, which then punches you down Emerson Street into Mark Way and wrap around into Louise. And we tried to turn our back on that and just set a buffer on that north property line. That was kind of the big picture. And then there's a lot of measures of intensity that go with it. Next. There is the access point that we've discussed, NDOT access location. What we've learned from them at this point, we spent a lot of time with them, that this is going to be a routine granting of access. Next. Largely because of the intensity. I think this came up, and I think there's some mystery as to the visual intensity of this use. So we took this photo at the basically Mark Way right there. So you get a perspective of the height of the freeway and the proposed height of the canopy that will be in the foreground in the blue line. So that would be sitting just behind, just to the south of the lots there. And what we're showing is 36-foot height as the freeway at that rough elevation. Of course, it varies a little bit based on the elevation change, but generally flat, 36 feet. And then the height of the canopy is 18 feet. The point being that, and then we don't have a visual simulation to get into the detail yet, but the idea would be that's the height of the canopy, the trees would be in the foreground, and it would actually, as staff mentioned, screen and buffer the freeway. Next. There is our landscape plan that shows, again, that 30-foot area on our property that becomes the primary buffer area and transition area from the large lot single family to this use. The orange is, in this case, we have two variations of the single use. One is canopies, the other is what appears to be kind of that orangish color is enclosed storage area. The blue area to the south side of the triangle is the retention area for stormwater. I think that covers that. Next. This is, a similar graphic. It shows the civil site plan. You can see the actual parking layout. If you look closely, that was the idea of just sharing this with the commission and the community. And then again, that 30-foot band along the north property line for the buffer. Next. Landscape plan in more detail. Next. Same on the civil plan. Next. Zoning existing, and the next slide is zoning proposed.
So, John, I hate to interrupt, but we're on just the master plan right now.
That's right. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Let's see, if you could go to, you know what, I'll wait for that last slide that shows some of the merits of why we did what we did for the zone change part of this. Is that, okay, thank you. That's all I have for this introductory part, commissioners, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from the commissioners? Any questions? Okay, Commissioner DeChristopher?
This question is for Heather. Since the current zoning is SF6, how many homes assuming homes would have been put in here. How many lots?
I didn't do the calculation. I can, if you
Just
give me a
roughly. I'm
second.
sorry, I should have called you in advance for that.
25.
John's telling me 25.
25?
May I, Commissioner?
Yes.
I want to be clear that in my professional opinion, the zoning would allow that as density goes. There's no way that you would get 25 there. And I've shared that in an email to the community. It would be something significantly less. We think it would physically have capacity for 15 or 16 lots, something like that. Inefficient parcel in its shape, and you'd need some help and either some incentives to reduce lot size, but the gross density per the SF6 zoning would allow 25.
Okay, thank you.
Is that right?
Thank you.
Michael corrected me. He's an engineer. It's 26.
Any further questions? Commissioner Borders?
One of the things that has us all perplexed is if all this other Title 18 and master plan stuff that we're redoing. And in the preliminary draft of the new master plan, this property would be zoned, or the land use would be what they call,
I believe the existing master plan, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, existing master plan is low-density residential and zoning is SF 6000, is that correct?
That is correct.
So, and it's interesting because this is what we've been talking about as part of the master plan, is when they did the master plan in 2006, they didn't then go in and update the zoning map. So we have a master plan designation that tells us this should be low-density residential, yet a zoning district that tells us it's medium-density residential. And then to just complicate it slightly more, it's a weird lot, it just is.
yeah.
And we're about to update the master plan.
Yeah, and the update would probably call it something in the,
I have thoughts on that, but what's before you is a request to amend the master plan. So I think,
well, that's kind of my dilemma. We're amending the master plan, that we're amending, that we're rewriting, that we're adopting, and it's just, it seems to be, we're piling on.
understood.
And I do also know that in Title 18, the community regional commercial area is one of those that we consider to eliminate. So, yeah, I don't know where we are.
Right. And I'm almost wondering, Madam Chair, and it's a little late, but if it makes sense to look at this in its totality as opposed to in a segmented way, because I think when the community speaks, it's going to be maybe easier for the community to speak about it in its totality as opposed to simply master plan. And then you can take them obviously separately. And sorry, Heather, for that late suggestion.
Okay. I'm going to have to agree because this right here is, I mean, we're looking at this. We just spent 3 hours on a workshop with the master plan and in public hearings with things that we are looking at changing. So what I'd like to do is, can I just back up? Okay. Todd, can I just back up and read the next one for Title 18 and put them concurrently?
You certainly can, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. This is item number 6E, agenda title PUD 2024-0282 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors concerning an ordinance approving a request tentative commercial planned unit development, PUD, including one amendment to the zoning map to change the use of the district from property single family 6000 SF6 to tourist commercial planned unit development, TCP, and to approval of the special use permit, SUP, to establish a recreational vehicle, RV, and boat storage facility, either covered or enclosed, on 3.64 acres on the east side of Emerson Drive at the southern terminus of Louise Drive, assessor's parcel number APN 008123 38. And do you want to just go ahead and continue with your presentation?
Madam Chair,
Oh,
if I
wait, we
could,
got-
I have a presentation as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Heather Ferris again for the record. So before we get into the specifics of the project, I just want to talk a little bit about PUDs in general. So generally speaking, a PUD is used to encourage more efficient use of land and public and private services. It allows for flexibility of land development regulations while controlling development in the best interest of the public. A PUD is implemented through an ordinance and functions similar to an overlay zone, with allowable uses being limited to those uses allowed in the underlying zoning district. In return for the flexibility in design standards, the project is also required to set aside 30% open space. And finally, all applications with respect to approval of the PUD are required to be applied for under the single PUD application. So this particular part of the request includes the zoning map amendment as well as the special use permit. So as noted in the project description, this is a request for a commercial planned unit development. Specifically, it would limit the allowable uses to 167 space RV and boat storage facility, either covered or enclosed, with an on-site dump station. The application encompasses the request for an amendment to the zoning map to change the zoning from SF6, as shown here, to tourist commercial planned unit development, and approval of a special use permit to establish that use, that single use of RV and boat storage. The site would be accessed via Emerson and would require an encroachment permit from NDOT. No access is proposed via Louise. The applicant has incorporated a 30-foot setback from the residences on the north, including landscaping and screening fence or wall within that 30-foot area. The height of structures would be limited to a max of 20 feet when measured to the peak of the roof of the structures. Hours of operation will be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. As I mentioned, 30% open space is being provided. Staff is also recommending a condition of approval requiring a photometric plan be provided with the site improvement permit demonstrating that any exterior lighting is not going to bleed into the night sky or onto adjacent properties. Here's an example out of the application as to what the buildings could look like. And I'll just wrap up with, there's 13 findings of fact outlined in 1707-005 and 6 findings outlined in 1709-050, all of which must be made in the affirmative when the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors can consider a planned unit development. Staff has made all findings in the affirmative and is recommending approval, subject to the conditions of approval which are included in the staff report. The Planning Commission's action is a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. We do have, as shown on the screen, a small correction to condition number 9. Since there is no final map associated with the project, staff is recommending the timing associated with this requirement be changed to prior to the issuance of any construction permits. We have not received any public comments related to this item, and I'm available for questions. And as you know, John Karpotik is also here.
Okay. John, did you want to finish out your?
Okay. Do you know when the master plan, Madam Chair, when that process started, the master plan update process?
That was in October 2023.
Okay. I think it's entirely coincidental. I think you guys know that on our behalf, that we just happen to be lining up, and I think it's causing a bit of confusion. So I was curious why, you know, you guys are literally having a master plan workshop today, and we're here talking about an MPA. It's not entirely conventional. With regard to, I want to be very respectful to this zoning and master plan. It is a package deal. There's nothing without it. We thought because of the band in this case of TC over there, that it's a valid argument to make the case for the next slide for not doing spot zoning, an extension of the TC, similar on the master plan land use maps that staff shared. I want to be real clear here, and again, we have a single use that we're asked for. I would put any provisions on performance, including reversion to whatever zoning you guys want if we didn't perform, if the district attorney was willing to do that. We're not playing any games. We're not trying to create TC zoning. We're doing TC zoning to facilitate one specific use. If you guys were willing to consider the use, and I'm sure that the community will have their say on this. I don't know. But that is the idea, and I just wanted to be really clear. I think commitment's powerful in all of our lives, and I know it is in this business. And if we have a PUD, TC cannot stand alone. We have performance requirements on timing of delivering a project in the PUD of which we've accepted that condition. And I'm willing to go further and say by some resolution of intent, it would expire or revert back to whatever zoning you would find appropriate if that could be considered in this process. And then the last slide, please, Heather. Actually, there's the canopy. This canopy, and this is the, as I know it, the gold standard, a group from on this particular product, both in the canopy and on the closed, which is shown in the next slide. Staff also shared that. And then I'd like to go through some project detail to know about the analysis, consideration, everything we did in design and operational characteristics to consider this use versus single family. Improving, creating the access on Emerson, I think that is, I know it's unique with regard to this use versus there would be no discussion of it if we did residential in there. Low traffic generator, this is the equivalent traffic generation based on the ITE manual, right, that looks at the best fit land use codes for equivalent of 4 homes of single family intensity. Hours of operation, staff mentioned, we're comfortable with that, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Actually, we wanted longer, but Heather and I had a discussion about that, and she convinced me that that was what it's going to be. Noise, very, very quiet on noise because of just pickup and delivery. It's a parking area, a nice parking area. Lighting, no external parking lots. We're fine with that. We would need some security lighting because there's millions of dollars of investment here. The sight line I mentioned in the photo, illustrative from Mark Way intersection at Emerson, you could see that canopy relative to the freeway height. In this case, it sits well below it, and then the buffer in front. The setbacks, just practically speaking, from structure to structure, it's probably 200 feet plus as setback goes. Screening and buffering, I mentioned 30-foot wide screen, the buffer along the site with the trees. The overall intensity of no employees, just gated access, providing a security system, a surveillance system. Storm drain, that did come up at our community meeting last week. I am 100% confident that we would improve it, that would benefit the neighbors. It's the way we deal with the science of managing water, controlling flow with engineered solutions versus water rampantly coming onto a site and doesn't have any regard for property lines, obviously. It just penetrates the whole neighborhood. And then, you know, it has to be said in the last bullet point, there is vagrant activity on these kind of sites. In my experience, if you're an academic in planning, I'm not suggesting I am, but I have a lot of experience in it. What's the first sign of bad activity? Either vacant buildings or vacant sites in an infill scenario. And so it puts an end to possibility of trespassing and that type of activity. I think that covers it for, is that my last? Yeah, that's my last slide. Thank you for your time, and I'll wait for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, if I could
Yes,
give
sir.
you a comment. I just wanted to comment on Mr. Krompatik's comment about the master plan and Commissioner Borders. Blah, what do we do? In this particular scenario, you essentially have to set aside what you've just done for the past 3 hours and base your decision on what the master plan is today and what the municipal code is today and whether their application fits in with it. There are timelines and schedules that the city has to meet when these applications come in. Unfortunately, the timelines don't allow for an extended period of time while we amend the master plan. So we have to base our decision on what everything is today, and then that will be incorporated into whatever happens in the future with the master plan.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, staying with the master plan, I'd encourage the commissioners, as you listen to public comment, to look at pages 3 and 4 of the staff report for 6D, where Heather specifically called out the required findings of fact. You need to look at these findings of fact. You don't look at these a lot because you don't get master plan amendments a lot, so you're not real familiar with these. But Heather's outlined each of the 4 findings of fact that have to be made in the affirmative for you to amend the master plan. So you may want to just take a minute and look at what those findings are, and then as the community is speaking to you, you can think of it in the context of these findings.
Okay, thank you. Yes. How about Commissioner Lloyd?
Just had a question, since your last slide said that there would be no employees on site. How is somebody going to be able to figure out even how to use that space? Or how is there going to be provided security? I've kind of a double question there.
A management operation where you're not on site, right? On with a management company that explains how the operation works. You would meet and you go through that. Go ahead, Mike's done several of these as well.
My name is Mike Vicks with Monte Vista Consulting. Sorry. Can you guys hear me okay?
Bring it just a little closer.
Okay. A lot of times the way these are operated is each unit is individually alarmed and there's an alarm system throughout the entire facility. When you come in, the individual unit that you unlock is the only one that gets unlocked, and then everything else is remain locked. And then as you leave, it rearms your facility. Further, the site would have security systems, and a management company would be reviewing that, throughout the day. It's not like somebody's sitting there watching a camera the whole time, but they have protocols in place. More and more of these facilities are going away from on-site management and somebody actually living on site, and to these, more, hands-off approach security systems. And that's what we've seen across the industry lately in the last 5 or 6 years.
As a quick follow-up, are those alarms audible? Like, can you hear them?
I'm honestly not familiar with that level of how they work, if they're audible or if it just signals to a maintenance management company. That part I haven't been informed on.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay, I have a question for you then too. It's because I understand the ones that are closed that would have, security systems and specific to a specific owner through like a keypad system. But what about the ones that are just undercover?
Those would not be alarmed.
Right, okay. Okay. All right, any other questions of the commissioners? Okay. Yes, Commissioner DeChristopher?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Those for the applicant. 2 questions. The first one is, when RVs come in for storage, is there any criteria they have to meet in terms of the fuel they have on board? Fuel. Yeah,
No criteria.
okay. So no
you mean like-
monitoring of, well, an RV can come in typically when there's any type of RV storage, they have requirements for how much fuel is on board, either in the tanks or being brought in ancillary to that.
You mean if you have a 100-gallon tank, you want to know
You want it down to 20.
20,
or
yeah.
You want it, yeah.
If that's important to the commission, I'd be willing to set a condition, accept a condition on that. If you think that would be a source of, well, fuel for.
Madam Chair?
I don't know how you'd regulate it. I mean, I'm just.
You're not.
I just wanted to know the good
It's
faith part. If
how
that's a
they-
concern with the commission and the community,
Right, but we're talking about, you can say, yeah, you'd like to do that. However, we're talking about individual users that are leasing and coming in with a non-occupied space that has.
we're going to have operation agreement, right?
The way, I'm sorry,
yeah.
I don't mean to get off on,
Yeah.
it is important, and I'm
Yeah.
going to follow
No,
through with
No,
why
I'm
it's
not
important to
suggesting
me.
it's not. I agree with the chair. The staff can't enforce that. We can't have an operation agreement and watch how you operate. We don't have bandwidth to do that. But that's not to be
Let me
dismissive
follow.
of what you said.
Thank you, because I think the point that I'm making, and this is in my wheelhouse, having been involved with dealerships who have this as a side biz. The reason it's important is when you are based in close location to residential areas, to airports, the amount of fuel that you have in a condensed area like that has consequences. That's why I ask. The second question I have, but I do appreciate that we have no way of monitoring it. And just for, as a FYI, how they monitor is they know the weight of a vehicle based on its year, make, model, any type of OEM on it. They know that weight and they weigh it when it goes in. But that is typically at a facility where there is someone present to take the vehicles in. So I'm not looking to create a problem for you. I'm just asking questions because the concern I have is the location of that in relationship to an airport in a residential area, because it's up to 167. And I think that is, for me, as a commissioner, that's a real concern. So I appreciate what you're saying. I'm explaining it because I can
Yes.
tell from your body language that you think I'm off base asking. The other question I have is on page 6 of 13, under talking about 1709-105. I'm curious about the consequences of resale. It says, requires the developer to establish an organization for ownership and maintenance for all common open space and other common property. Since the property is not being subdivided and the entire parcel, including open space, will be under single ownership, staff is recommending a condition of approval requiring the open space to be maintained by the property owner. My question, and this probably goes to Heather, is what are the consequences if we approve this and it is sold?
So like a special use permit, the PUD is, all of those things combined, a zoning map amendment, and in this case, a special use permit. So that transfers with the land. So if this is sold, whoever purchases that would be subject to the same conditions of approval unless they came in and requested a planned unit or an amendment to the planned unit development. And then they'd have to go through this entire process.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to add a condition to address Commissioner DeChristopher's concern about this tank, about the fuel. And we can do it in an operation agreement. We can impose it. It's like CC&Rs for the operation of one facility. Why not? It's on the applicant and the tenant to work through that and make a commitment.
All right. Commissioner Cron, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll start with Heather, and this may bounce to the applicant. In one of your findings, on finding 2 specifically, you talk as this particular land use would be a potentially a buffer for the residences to the north. But yet, if you look up and down the freeway corridor, there's a lot of different residential that backs up to the freeway. Matter of fact, just across the freeway, John, you have your own little project that you developed over there, and I drove through it the other day, and it's really nice. So I guess that's where I'm struggling a little bit, to change the land use. Granted, it's not being used right now, but neither was that parcel that you built your little project on 4 years ago. Turned out to be very nice. So I'm struggling a little bit, I guess, is that with residential use does back up to the freeway, up and down it if you look. And then you have, so I'm not disagreeing with what you state in your staff report. Yes, it could act as a buffer, but would it be just as nice possibly to have a buffer of residential homes in there as well that don't mind backing up to the freeway?
That is certainly an option. So in staff's evaluation, we talked about this being not only a buffer, but an extension of the existing community regional commercial designation that's in the area that already backs up to homes on the east side of Mark. You know, ultimately, it's up to the planning commission and the board. In all honesty, it was not an easy analysis for staff to make. I think I really could have written this either way.
Okay. I think where I've got an issue with this is that we understand that the master plan designation and the title, and with Title 18 and all of the different things that are in here, is that there were only 2 TCs in all of Carson City. There's this one that's right here, and it was primarily adjacent to the, what is it? The hot springs. And so we've got the hot springs right there, this TC. And when we've typically thought of TC, and I know when I came in here in the early 2000s, and I looked at that and I thought this would be an RV park. The other situation we have is that the property adjacent to it is the owned by INDOT. And with all of our discussions that we've had with INDOT lately in the state of Nevada, that they're really not disposing of property. However, they did dispose of this one, but the other one, they're using that as a continuous yard. The freeway intersected it in between all of this other things that we had when we had all these different map overlays. And John, I mean, your residential development, although it's shown as pink, is residential. It's not commercial. And I have a hard time with it being kind of a stretch to say that it's commercial, you know, in this whole area. No, you've got residential to the north, you got a freeway, and you got residential to the south, essentially. So, I mean, I'm having a hard time seeing that. And I understand, okay, we're bringing in the PUD, but usually when we bring in a PUD, it's because it's a mixed use. And this is not a mixed use. So I find that confusing. And I think the other thing is, and I know we have quite a bit of information here, but Steve, have we gone ahead and looked at this for ingress egress onto Emerson right there next to that freeway? Is there plenty of room in order to bring this? Because I do know that on our other projects where people actually had RV storage on Airport Road and on Empire, one of our concerns were turning radiuses, the ability to get in and out, traffic, and that type of thing.
Stephen Pote for the record. So they would have to meet our minimum standards for the driveway widths, and that's conditional on the NDOT approval. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we asked them to do an analysis on turning movements as one of the conditions of approval.
And then my other question is I realize that the applicant has pointed out that, yeah, the freeway is 36 feet high, but typically adjacent to a residential, we would have a special use permit for anything 30 feet too, right?
The tourist commercial zoning, I believe, allows for a 45-foot height limit. I can verify that. So,
See, I think this is the thing that's confusing. It says C commercial and TC tourist commercial. And I realize that
well,
we
you've
have a
got
lot
the
in there.
you've got the master plan, which is community regional commercial. And then the tourist commercial zoning overlays on top of that.
But
Maximum zoning in or the maximum height in tourist commercial is 45 feet.
45 feet? Okay. Commissioners, do you have any other questions before I ask for public comment? Seeing none, I think we're going to ask for public comment then, please. Yeah, we're going to do public comment. I can't hear you, hon. Oh, okay. No, we're going to go ahead and ask for public comment. Anyone that would like to have public comment, there's a 3-minute limitation. We ask that you be respectful for the staff, the commissioners, and the applicant. The clock is up here, and unfortunately, that's the only clock. So if we look back at this, it's not because we're being rude. We just want to make sure that there's time for the next people. Please sign in, hit the little green button. Please bring it closer to you so then that way everyone could hear. And there are 2 chairs here so that when one person leaves, another person can come up and start beginning signing in too. Okay? Would you like to start, Denny? He's signing in right now. So would you like to start, Mr. French, please?
Thank you. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Very fortunate to be a subscriber to the Nevada Appeal. And Scott Neufer had a really nice article about what I call it a PUD, is about. And it has really fine hopes and sort of a guideline, what it's for and how it's supposed to involve the environment and such. I would love to have this as an open space for insects, but it's been sold.
Okay, excuse me. If you're going to have discussions, can you please go outside? Okay,
Could I?
sorry about that, Denny.
Could-
That's okay. You get 20 seconds.
Thank you. The main thing is that this is high aspirations with the information from the paper of use, and I would love to have seen it used as a rest place for insects, but it was sold, and the owner has a right to develop it. I don't feel this is suitable for that particular area. It would be wonderful to have the feedback from the residents that live back there or with it would be in their backyards to know what their concerns were. I would have rather seen maybe mini homes or at least the 3 homes or such like that because it would fit the area better in my understanding after walking there quite a bit myself. So I'm against this particular deal. They did a wonderful presentation and it looks great. But to have a place like that, I mean, it might sweeten the pot if they put solar on it and then offered to give everybody in the neighborhood some electricity, but I don't think that would soften the view or it would changes the whole perspective of the place. Not having necessarily parking on the facility or a person there worries me too, because when you get out of your RV and you want to go, you have to have a vehicle that'd follow you or somebody's going to pick you up, sure, or Uber. I've actually experienced Uber lately, and they're available. But I just don't like the idea of an untended location like that in that particular area. Between the raccoons and everything else, you'd have an alarm going off every couple minutes. But the fuel deal that Supervisor Christopher brought up was huge. I hadn't considered that in my deal, but it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And so that's my only, I'm just going from the gut and it just doesn't fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bring it forward, hit the green button, and state your name.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. As an item of protocol, we only have a 3-minute limit, so what I'd like to do is get 3 people up here to.
No, we don't do that. It has to be
get through.
individual. Each individual can come up and spend 3 minutes. If they don't want to use their entire 3 minutes, they don't have to. But I do need you to state your name and then go forward. And like I said, you can spend 1 minute, 2 minutes, but 3 minutes is max.
Okay. I'm Phil Ware. I live at 969 Mark Way. And what I've got here is comments from neighbors that are comments from 2 brief meetings we've had to express their concerns about this project. And hopefully we'll get through it all, but we may not get to with a 3-minute limit. So regarding the master plan, first of all, we were talking about SF6 right off the bat, and I appreciate what y'all said. Currently, it's LDR, low density residential. Okay, so zoning regulations are intended to allow development in areas suitable for that development. Character of the neighborhood, people have been here in our neighborhood for a long time. Some are second and third generation homes. Neighbors know each other and look out for each other. Our neighborhood is a residential neighborhood. Changing the zoning to commercial will drastically change characteristics of this old established area. Will Carson be changing zoning or revising the master plan for other low-density areas, or just this one? We'd like, the courtesy of due consideration. Are all these master plan and zoning code changes coming, sorry. It seems like a lot of gyrations to go through to allow the developer proposed use and ultimately change the character of the established residential district. Please demonstrate why RV boat storage or anything else allowed by the recommended zoning class is conducive to the concept of quiet and peaceful enjoyment. We have been living in a place previously designated for a specific type of zoning, and now we're trying, the applicant is trying to radically change it. The neighborhood will change if the zoning is changed to commercial from residential, bringing 168 plus or minus RVs to our backyard. Roads and streets are paid by everyone. Everyone should have a say in what gets developed in the property adjacent to us. What else might be allowed? We don't know. Will billboard signs or cell towers be allowed? Another consideration is the impact of assessment values. You want to take that one, Eric? Okay.
Hi, I'm Eric Antilla. I live on Mark Way on the corner
Okay,
of Louise.
can you speak up just a moment, please?
Boy, my voice is not good. Can I get my 3 minutes back? I'm Eric Antilla. I live on Louise and Mark Way across the street. I think talking with everyone, I think our major concern is severalfold. One is that the density of that many vehicles coming in and people coming and going. I know that they say the average is just a handful of people a day, but that's a lot of fuel stored back there. Now with the lithium batteries, it's like, man, I don't know. Personally, I think I can speak on behalf of most of us, is that if we had 6 to a dozen residences, that's fine. We'll get to know our neighbors. We know who's coming, we know who's going. When we turn this into a commercial endeavor, who knows who that is? And I know, having worked with the homeless population for a number of years out at our church, they're very resourceful. And I do believe that they would hide in vehicles and boats, because I've heard them tell me that before. And that's a concern. It changes the nature of the neighborhood. This is a very safe, quiet neighborhood. And to turn it into commercial is just not something that we're excited about. I don't see how the value of our neighborhood will be enhanced by having a commercial endorsement, whether it be specifically for boats or RVs. And so when the people bought the property, and I recognize all of us have a right to develop our properties, and I appreciate that, but when they bought that property, they knew that it was single-family residence. And now they want to change that. And so I think that we all ought to have that input in there. And so some other concerns that neighbors have shared with me is that, yeah, that's great that you have surveillance, but I don't think the people immediately to that side, and I know that we're talking about having trees and covering, but I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd like to have surveillance on my property and people looking out and over walls or fences, because that's going to happen when you have that many people in there. You don't know who's coming and you don't know who's going. And as far as vehicles, it says, well, we don't want people to work on vehicles. How do you stop that? I have an RV and I work on it, and it will make noise. And it's different than having a residence. It's a lot different. And so people have boats, they're going to fire them up. They're going to work on them. People have RVs, they're going to do the same thing. And so that's our major concern. And I know I can speak more, but I think the essence of that is our concern is that that can be a potential fire hazard right there with that high density. I'm uncomfortable with it. And I know I'm across the street and I have a border, but there's lots of trees. One explosion will change that. And I don't think we have enough
Thank you.
vehicles to handle that. Thank you for your time and
No
consideration.
problem. Any further question, further public comment?
Good afternoon. My name is James Menacini. Hi, good afternoon. My name is James Menacini. I'm the resident at 1001 Mark Way. As many as my neighbors have pointed out, I think my main concerns with this development is twofold. One is security. I do have children that play in my backyard. And with RV, I am now worried that strangers are now going to be at my back neighbor, on a daily basis. They can change daily. I'd rather much see a residential development where I can get to know my neighbor, trust my neighbor, that I know where my kids are in my backyard, right? And I don't have to worry about who's on the other side of that fence. Second fold is I'm definitely affected by this. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. We're in a flood zone. Last I spoke to, I believe the name's John, they were talking about putting in a pavement and a retention pond. When I spoke with the Nevada Department of Mines and Geology last year at the Law Enforcement Night Out, they had a big demonstration on how pavement and flooding negatively go hand in hand. And that feels like puts my property at risk, my children at risk. I would rather see keep it as is or low density residential. That's the only comments I have at this time.
Any further public comment?
Make it turn green.
Yeah, just make it turn green.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
My name's Bruce Keaton. I live 819 Mark Way. When I first moved in there, the realtor told me that was Carson City's first planned subdivision. Every lot had to be at least over an acre. And if you look at the lots, they're all over an acre. Most of them are closer to 2, which means that 3.36 acre area would only hold 3 homes, not 25. About 20 odd years ago, Ford, Capital City Ford down here, they wanted that lot plus where NDOT is right now to store more new cars. That way they could buy them from Detroit, put them there, and not have them on the lot. When they sold them, they'd put them there. The access was going to be from Hot Springs only. Planning Commission turned them down. Don't know why, but they did. They didn't want to change it from residential to commercial, obviously. And at that point, NDOT took that spot over at the end, so now there is no more Hot Springs access. It's only off of Emerson. And the way I've been hearing everything, it sounds like, okay, it's at the terminus of Louise. Louise ends right at Mark Way. Years ago, and I'm talking 24, 25 years ago, I started paying city taxes on my portion of what Louise is, and the Garretts paid percentage on the other side. We gave Carson City access for the power company, the phone company, and the cable company to use a 10-foot section down the middle to get to the poles. Other than that, no one's supposed to be going down that road. So if they can't come in off of Emerson, and I hate to tell you, and I see them all the time because I'm a commercial driver, Most RV people are not that smart. They're not going to be able to make that turn as soon as they come under the freeway because they're not going to see it, which means they're going to be coming into and around all that residential, trying to find a new way in, which, since I'm working most of the time, I'm not going to see it, but the residents are. And I have the concerns with everyone else in here, the residents of people staring over their fences, looking at them. I hate to say it, but I do know a lot of nefarious people that will be living in their RVs if they're allowed to park there, or boats or whatnot. And actually, kitty corner across the street is a prime example. Some of their customers were living in the man's RV directly across my street. He had no idea they were there. For almost 6 months, they lived in his RV. So I can see a lot of stuff going on back there that they're not telling you about and they're not even thinking about because they don't know. My time's almost up. I would say no, unfortunately, just because they didn't explain it good enough.
Mr. Keaton, can you sign in, please?
I will. I work here.
Just because you changed chairs, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Not,
Yeah,
okay.
But I
How's
have
that?
to have another person.
You have to have it.
You've already done it.
Already done three.
You've already
three
done your
minutes?
3, so
thought-
yes. If you've got somebody else. No, you only get 3, and then you could go ahead and divide your paper among other people that hadn't spoken, and then they could have 3. Yes, please sign in, Denny. Okay.
Good evening. My name's Tammy Lubitch, and I lived at 1001 Mark Way for 36 years. I sold it to the Mendocinis, who are my kids. I have fought the city several times for many things going in there. Many years ago, when my husband was alive, we asked DOT about this lot because we wanted to purchase it and add it to ours and continue with it to keep it open so that nothing could be put back there. We have put the freeway back there, and it's beautiful in the winter. You got a great winter scene out the back window, but that's all it is. You put this back there, you are affecting the homeowners, the flooding. We were flooded back when we had the big flood in Carson City. You can't tell me their retention and everything else is going to work. There is also concrete abutment up against NDOT, the freeway. How are they going to affect that to where if water comes in and doesn't splash right onto our property? I had to redo my guest house. I had to redo my garage because of the flooding. We don't want, it's not a good fit. And my grandkids are back there, as my son-in-law said. I do not want people looking at, I am a mean grandma. I see somebody who's going to be there, and the resources of Carson City aren't going to be quick enough. I've had people jump that fence in the back and come into my property and had the police out and had to come and get them. I don't know who is going to be putting their RVs there. I have nothing against RVs, but they want Kmart as an RV place. You have an RV mobile home park at the end of the street of Mark Way that's supposed to be going in. High end. That was approved. I fought that, lost with the commission, lost with the supervisors. You have an airport. They told me, well, there's never been a plane crash there. I've been here for 64 years. I know the plane crashed in that field, and it can hit. And it hits, and it's going to affect every person on that block. And not one life is worth that. I understand they want to do something. But if you, like my son said, and everybody wants, you put in residential, we meet our neighbors, we know who they are, and then you feel safer. But you're going to do what you're going to do, and I really hope you do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Green.
Hi, I'm Pam Johnson, representing 1050 Mark Way. I have several questions. The first being, how many more RV storage places do we need? This commission already approved the old Kmart, and there's also one on Lone Mountain off of Stage Street that's just been built. So I'm confused about how many more RV places we need, storage places we need. I'm also wondering about if the property owners were given the first right of refusal when this property came up for sale, or did they not even know about it? Was it not even advertised for them? Some people have already said things about vagrants and the homeless. Last week there was a homeless man sleeping under the freeway overpass on Emerson. So we know they're in the area. It's not like we're going to ignore that. Another question is, the developer has said that it's going to be only a limited access between the hours 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. How are the people going to get in there? Will it be a swipe card or a punch code access? If so, then that's a 24-hour access, not just within those time frames. And if there's no one on site to regulate that, that's another problem. I also heard about an alarm being raised when someone comes in. So that's another disturbance to the residents. I'm reading, another question. It says an on-site dump station. Is that going to be tied into septic? Are they going to have to create their own septic for that? I'm reading from the Nevada Appeal article that I believe quoted the staff proposal, and that was, in the best interest of ecology, economy, public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the citizens. I don't think that the use of that property would be conducive to that statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alexandra Garrett, and I have a lot of concerns like everybody else has, is mainly the cameras. I do have kiddos that go play out with their horses and our pool and everything out back. I feel like that's kind of a privacy issue for me. I don't know, especially if somebody's watching or anything like that and is bored, can move the camera. I don't know. The lights was also my other concern. I know that they said they're not going to be, disturbing the night sky or anything, but I think you would still be able to see some kind of radiant from them. And my other concern is that if this is changed to commercial, is what would it do to our property value? I don't know if it would decrease it at all. And then there was also a mention about solar panels. I don't know if there would be a reflection off of them coming into our homes. That was also something I was thinking about. And like I said, people jumping the fence. We have had a stranger jump our fence and he was back there feeding our horses one morning. We don't want that happening again. Flood zoning. We do have livestock out there, and I'm concerned about it flooding more than it already has. We've tried building up the back property several times. It just continues to flood. I don't know if it'll make it worse with them back there. And personally, I would rather have, if it has to be, I would rather have homes there where, like I said, my kids can meet other kids. We can have new neighbors versus strangers coming and going that we don't know. And also somebody mentioned about a fire risk with the fuel that's all back there, the batteries that are all back there. Just if one would go, they would kind of just basically all go. That's my biggest concerns. Also the dump station, that was also a concern. I don't know if we'll end up being able to smell it. Like I said, how is it going to be dumped? I think that's pretty much my concerns. And I live right next to Mr. Bruce, and like he said, we do own part of that off of Louise, so they couldn't really use that. He did mention that they wouldn't do it, but they could if they thought about it to use that road. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, would you like to come back up, John and Heather, and answer the questions?
So I didn't hear a lot of questions. I heard a lot of concerns. One of the questions, though, that was raised, Mr. Ware asked what else might be allowed there. Under the proposal, it would be limited to the only use that would be allowed there would be the RV storage. That's what the PUD would establish. It would establish the limiting use. The question of the dump station, it would be an on-site dump station for the customers that are renting spaces, and it would be connected to the city sewer. And I believe that's it as far as questions. I don't have an answer as to whether or not property owners were given first rights of refusal. That was an NDOT sale that the city did not participate in. I think Stephen has a couple to respond to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So one of the citizens mentioned Luis, and specifically what he described was it sounded like there had maybe been an abandonment. I did a quick search on our records and wasn't able to find anything. That doesn't mean that there wasn't one. However, the application doesn't rely on Luis for access. That was one thing specifically that they're looking to do is go straight out to Emerson. The concrete abutment there, that's there to protect the fill that is supporting the freeway. They would have to go through the design process with NDOT to approve either a retaining wall or something to create access there. And then on flooding, they would just be required to meet our development standards and municipal code, which requires them to go through the LOMAR process, which includes an analysis to ensure that they're not impacting anybody upstream or downstream with fill. So
I think, was there anything that you see here in the notes that, I mean, surveillance, obviously we would, it would be, it would be away from the abutting residences, right, to protect their privacy and have surveillance on site. That's just an orientation thing. I respect the comment. Hydrology has been a big thing. We're confident in doing this all the time that we could improve it, but the proof is in the pudding on that. I don't know if you have any perspective on the hydrology and on the stormwater management part of this.
So Mike Vicks, Monte Vista Consulting, we've done a drainage analysis of the pre and post development condition and proposed 2 retention ponds on site that will offset the differential between pre and post development. We have sized them just preliminarily, 10% larger than the city's standard, and we do have depth. We've checked to groundwater where we could actually go deeper and provide additional capacity potentially. One point that we like to make if we can when we do a design is to have a physical outlet from those detention ponds to avoid any, vector issues, mosquitoes, et cetera. And both of these ponds can have a direct outlet to the drainage channel just directly to the east on the NDOT property. And so they wouldn't be filled with water constantly. They would be water would be discharged from the site at a slower rate to match the pre-development condition. Again, like I said, we could potentially build in a bit more factor of safety. What we would be doing is taking into account the overall analysis that Stephen mentioned at the final design stage, to where once we have the final design done, a hydraulic analysis of the impacts of this project and on the, vicinity, any neighbors would be analyzed, and we would not, we'd be required to ensure that there is no negative impact to the neighbors with the proposed development. And then that could be considered in the sizing of the ponds and the final geotechnical report, making sure we don't go down into groundwater, because there's no point in digging a hole deeper if it naturally fills with water, which I know is often the case down here. So
The thank you, Michael. The last comment I would have is just, there's a lot of concern about compatibility, about safety, about, right, respect for the neighborhood. I'm doing there's 160 storage units here, right? Whether it's boat or RV, and think about, like, climate controlled is a real popular type of new storage facility. Now, there's usually 700 or 800 up to 1,000 units. I'm doing 2 of those. A friend of mine that I went to graduate school with got in that business. He hired me in one in Washoe County recently. And what you find is that they are highly compatible next to residential because the uses are so quiet. That's the truth of how they operate. They're void of people. Good management is important. They have good fencing. They have surveillance programs. It's a very sleepy level of activity. I'm comfortable saying that to the commission and to the community. I know they don't trust it, but that's how they behave. I've done between climate controlled, the old school mini storage is kind of going, they're not as popular now. And then these are very popular, as you know, because people still have smaller houses, smaller lots, have a lot of stuff. When you have boats and RVs, you have to find a place to store them. It's off-site storage for people that have the resources to actually buy an RV or a boat. And it's a very popular land use thing now. But everything I've learned, they're highly compatible with residential. They're quiet. There's no noise. There's no lights, et cetera. And that's my best understanding and explanation of the use. Thank you.
Okay, John, you're talking about regular storage units. We're not talking about RV storage. Yeah, but the thing is they're two different animals.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that we need to be clear.
Yeah.
Is the fact is why didn't you consider storage units on here without vehicles and gas and that? Because the fact is they could have been just regular storage units, like you said,
You
which
mean
would be
mini
more
storage.
of a like mini storage.
Yeah.
That may have been a more compatible use and not have the concern that people have on people working on different things if they were just truly taking their twigs and feathers and putting them in a box.
I would like to defer to Heather. She and I had a very specific conversation on this issue. And because at the time of application, we had mini storage, climate controlled, and then the subject storage. There was a technical reason in the code that wasn't allowed.
So in the tourist commercial zoning district, personal storage is only allowed when it's a personal storage and retail office complex. So they would have to have a retail and or office feature in the personal storage, very similar to what the Kmart facility, the old Kmart facility proposed. They had to have 60% of their street frontage had to be retail or office use. They would be required to do the same thing. And with this site, John indicated to me that just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it a little less compatible too, when you have the possibility of people coming in and out for a retail use.
Madam Chair, I'm going to suggest, although I did suggest that you take these 2 items together for the ease of conversation, at this point, I think we need to segment them. And it's really important that you look at the master plan and you look at the findings of the master plan and create a very clear record on where you are in terms of the findings on the master plan. Again, right now, the master plan says this should be low-density residential. The request is to designate this triangular piece of land to community regional commercial. So that's really, I think, what should be the focus. And then once you get through that item, we'll help you navigate what comes next. But we can't get to what comes next until you go through 6D. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Lloyd?
This question, I guess, is for Heather. In neither of the items did I see comments from the fire department.
So the fire department did review it. In our database, there's an option to select no comments approved. Essentially, he has no comments on this particular project. I reached out to him to clarify, and he said, no, he has no comments, no concerns as long as they meet the standards. So standard turning radius, access is going to have to be, the standard width so that they can access the facility. There's no requirement for secondary access.
When the fire department is reviewing it, are they reviewing it for access standards or also safety standards?
They're reviewing the project as a whole.
I think my question on that is because there's been some confusion here. Would the, when the fire department pushed their button, do you think that they realized that there would actually be fuel storage and so forth?
I believe they reviewed it as an RV storage facility. And typically RVs they either have gas in their fuel tank if it's a motorhome. Boats will have gas in their fuel tank. And there's a possibility of propane cylinders also being on RVs. So I would assume that they had reviewed it for that. I can't guarantee you that because the fire marshal isn't here to speak for himself.
Any further questions?
I have one, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks.
My question is for the applicant. On your hydrology study, what is the flood standard? Is it a 100-year flood or something else?
The Carson City standard is to detain the differential between the 25-year storm event. The code for maintaining the 100-year flood path would also be enforced. And so Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong. However, in our overall flood analysis at the final design stage, we would have to confirm that in the 100-year flood event, we would not have any adverse effects on any of the adjacent surrounding properties or downstream properties. The stormwater detention is a reduced requirement below the 100-year. Currently, I believe it's a 20. Was it the 10-year, 24-hour storm event? I believe, Stephen.
Can't remember off the top of my head. That sounds right.
I should know that. I have that.
I appreciate your answer. I just wanted to confirm that the local standard wasn't too far off of what I've seen elsewhere. Thank you.
To confirm, it is the 10-year, 24-hour storm event. So.
Discussion.
In discussion will be specific to 6D.
It's, yeah, specific to 6D in regards to the changing the master plan.
And I do have the findings up on the screen for you.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Cron?
I'm struggling a bit, to be honest with the commission, with finding number 2 and number 4. Is this particular parcel adjacent to the commercial? To the commercial regional, yes, but it's also adjacent to the low-density residential. It's, if you look at it from just just looking at the big picture, it just seems like it's thrusting this commercial property into a residential area for me. So I just don't think it's compatible with in this case, for the entirety of the neighborhood. I think it puts, for lack of a better term, a wedge into the neighborhood that I don't think necessarily needs to be there.
Can you state for the record what findings you're referring to and what you're finding with regard to those?
Sure. Finding 2 and 4, I'm struggling to make those findings. And it's based on the idea that it's not a compatible land use with the existing neighborhood to the north. In both cases. Does that work for you? Is that okay, Hope? Okay.
Commissioner Borders?
I'm torn a little bit because I've been up here for a long time preaching to developers to get clever and smart to do weird things with the different pieces of land, and you have done a weird thing. This is I like the idea. Okay, I like the idea of a planned unit development in a specific case. I'm just having trouble with number 2. It's not quite there. Sounds like they'd buy it from you. But that's the one I'm struggling with, is number 2.
Can I ask, Mr. Borders, are you talking about compatibility? Is that specifically
Yeah.
compatibility?
Yeah.
I see. Okay,
Yeah, strictly with the compatibility of the neighborhood.
thank you.
I too am having difficulty making making the findings for 2 and 4, specifically to compatibility with the neighborhood.
Brooks?
I am not struggling as my fellow commissioners are. I understand that this is a change in the use designation of the land, and I am sensitive to homeowners feeling that nobody wants to see their neighborhood change. Having said that, there have been many, many years where this property could have been developed according to its current land use designation, and it wasn't. And so I don't pray at the church of all development is good development, but I do like to see, like Commissioner Borders, I like to see interesting project proposals that advance the region's economy, and that to me means I don't have any issues with the findings.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Christopher?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am not able to make findings 2 and 4, and it's for the same reason that Commissioner Crum indicated with the residential area to the north. And the one comment I'd make that I think fits in there with 4, with the pattern of orderly physical growth and meeting the needs of our population. Right now, we don't have a screaming need for this particular, to have it be this zoning. Even though we don't currently have a developer asking us to develop in that area, given the constraints we have on housing, those 2 things together is why I can't find 2 and 4. It seems more reasonable to keep it as it is, low density. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to weigh in on here too, and I have a hard time with number 2. And I also have a hard time with number 4 because I agree that this is the low-density housing. I think that should be there. I think the project that you did on the opposite side of the freeway, John, was really great. This right here is not, I think, I like the way that Commissioner Christopher put it. There's not a screaming need. We have the Kmart proposal, we have one on Airport Road, and we have one on Empire. And we actually added, special things for that. None of them have turned a shovel. So, I mean, I'm looking at that going, yeah, there really is not a screaming need for it. But I think my other concern, and I don't know if that's even been brought in the hydrology, is that the flood that the neighbor was talking about was in 1997, prior to the construction of the freeway. And the freeway is a large impervious surface with a, big slope coming down into an area that is going to have additional impervious surfaces, collecting both on the tarmacs and then also on the roofs. So I look at that and I go, wow, and I do know that that was all area out there with a big alkali flat for a long time. And so it doesn't perk real well. But I think number 2 and number 4, I just can't get there. So is someone ready to make a motion? Chuck, would you like to make the motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that we I got the right one. Okay. I move that we deny approval of MPA 2024-0280 based on the findings and conditions of approval in the staff report. That we were unable.
If we can clarify that motion, I believe the motion was denial based on the inability to make findings 2 and 4 for
2
the
and 4.
reasons stated on the record.
The reason stated on the record is for the compatibility with the low-density residential that's adjacent to it.
And if I can further modify that motion.
Certainly.
The 6D is possible action regarding a resolution. And so you wouldn't specifically be denying the project, you'd be declining to adopt the resolution or something like that.
Thank you.
Very good.
I move that we decline adopting the resolution 2024 PCR-1.
I need more than that for the record. So you can certainly, I'm going to suggest in deference to the district attorney's office that you decline to adopt the resolution and you find that you cannot make findings 2 and 4 relative to neighborhood compatibility, and therefore you are not recommending the requested master plan amendment.
All right, that's what I said.
I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Second,
Oh.
need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Cron. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. So, 1, 2, 3,
Break?
yeah, 5, 1.
Actually, if you want to do 6E really quick,
I've been asked for a break.
okay.
Well,
Or can we do?
Do it quickly because now you won't be able to make the finding concerning master plan consistency. And so because you can't make that finding, you can go ahead and take an action.
in case, Madam Chairman, I move to recommend disapproval of PUD 2024-0282.
We don't have to do another public comment, do we, in between
You-
these? Because we're doing
And them both
concurrently.
together.
Right, okay. All right, I'm sorry for interrupting. Can you?
I move that the Board of the Planning Commission disapprove PUD 2024-0282, or recommend not approval of the PUD 2024-0282 to the Board of Supervisors based on the ability to make finding number 1.
Reading the findings, what page?
Finding number 1 on item 6E says
What page?
I'm on page 7 of 13, and I'm seeing finding 6 requires conformity with the zoning ordinance and the land use element of the master plan.
Well,
Simply say that rather than finding 1, you can say based on the inconsistency with the master plan.
all right, based on the inconsistency with the master plan.
Do you have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner DeChristopher. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. That was a nay from Commissioner Brooks. Okay,
Only on the first measure, Madam Chair, not on the second one.
not on the second one? Okay, so it is an you
No.
agreed on the second. It's unanimous on the second. Commissioner DeChristopher. Okay. Now I'd like to go ahead and call a recess to come back in 7 o'clock.
Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Commission. And going on to item number 6F for discussion only, ZA 2020-001 for discussion only, discussion regarding the draft table of permitted uses for the update of Title 18, Carson City Municipal Code, CCMC. Hope.
Thank you. So these tables will be part of the Title 18 update. I felt like it would be helpful for you to see the titles all but the table of permitted uses all by themselves and provide input on those. You can see the strike-throughs, the additions. One change I am recommending this evening is on the P tables, we did strike open space. I'm going to suggest we bring open space back as a land use. Open space is not the same as parks, and I think it needs to be called out. And I would suggest that we make open space an allowed use, not a special use. So it would be a P in the, I think it's the PR zoning district. That. But otherwise, I'm here to listen to your input. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's something we've been talking about. And we've tried to simplify the uses, so I don't care if you're selling, candy or shoes, you're retail. An office is an office. So we've really tried we got rid of diaper delivery. So we tried to
But you
get rid
kept
of.
slaughterhouse.
Yes, we did. And so we tried to really simplify, make sure the uses were current, and that's what I've got.
Hope, when we get done with this, through this iteration, can we get a copy that's got all the strike-throughs taken out of it so we see what we really have left?
Yes, when we do, what we're going to do, and I'll go over this under my report, is we'll have a workshop on Title 18. It's on the 16th. And so for that workshop, I can give you a clean copy, and then you can take another stab at it.
Okay. Wonderful.
Looking at the, I'll use accessory dwelling as an example. I think that was based on our last conversation in March, the joint session, that it was now going to be P. Is there, I don't want to ask this like I'm opening up a can of worms on this one. I'm just using it as an example. There is a chance, right, that we may be coming back and editing this again because of discussions we have during our master plan update.
Yes, because, not the master plan itself won't trigger it, but when you implement the master plan, you'll likely change zoning districts. And so then we'll revisit these tables. But I'm glad you used accessory dwelling as an example, because another thing you'll see in here that I observed is we had a lot of accessory uses called out. And an accessory use is like the garage at your house, okay? The land use is a single-family residence. It happens to have a garage. You store your car in your garage, but the land use isn't a garage. It's a single-family residence. Well, we also had stuff like a machine shop if it's accessory to, I don't even know, manufacturing or something. And I think a lot of times accessory uses are intuitive, and you have to see the context of the land use and the accessory use. So I didn't try to describe the accessory uses in the tables, because I think we have to look at those when they come in. And a lot of times, I'm looking at Heather, because the assistant planner will come to one of us and say, hey, I have a request for X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And we'll say, get a floor plan, because we want to see the floor plan to see how the space is being used so we can identify the land use. And so I think we would do something similar when we had a question about whether that was an accessory use or a primary use.
Is that where you go to caretaker cottages too on industrial?
Watchman's quarters, yeah. So is it a house or is it a watchman's quarters, and it's really an industrial use? So exactly. So I didn't try to call out what accessory uses are allowed, because if they're accessory and the primary use is allowed, why would we go there? And I think the paint booth is going to come into play on that, these paint booths you keep looking at. Because if somebody's repairing cars, doing auto body repair, of course they have a paint booth. That's just accessory to their car repair. So, yeah.
And those are usually leased equipment and overseen by the EPA, so.
Right, and I'm not even gonna worry about that. I'm looking at land use. So, yeah, so this whole idea is to streamline, and I know that Lindsay Boyer sat through your entire meeting with Jen Budge, our Parks and Rec Director, to give you public comment. So I'll just offer that.
Okay, let's do the public comment.
Thank you. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. I know you guys are tired, so I'll make my comments brief. As you guys know, the Open Space Program was started in 1996 with our passage of the Quality of Life Initiative. Since then, we've been able to preserve over 7,400 acres of open space here in Carson City, which is amazing. This includes 5,000 contiguous acres along the Carson River Corridor and the Prison Hill Recreation Area, as well as agricultural areas, wildlife habitat, and view sheds, as well as managing over 80 miles of trails within Carson City as well. I know from all the recent master plan amendment talks, open space and trails have come up as a very important use for the community. So as Hope noted, open space was stricken from the public district use tables. So I'm also recommending that open space be brought back in and not lumped in with parks, since they are a separate and distinct use. However, we do have a variety of zoning throughout open space, including agriculture, conservation reserve. We even have some single family 1 acre. So I'm recommending that open space be added as a permitted use in all of those use tables. And then additionally, I'd like to promote that the zoning should recognize and permit ancillary uses of open space, like trails, trailheads, and trailhead facilities, because that's kind of all part of the package as well. So thank you for your time tonight, and that's it.
Any questions? Commissioner Cron?
Yeah, I had a question. Lindsay? Back. Yes, the Open Space Program is an amazing program here in Carson City. And if there's something we can do that we can help you in the sense of, like you're talking about permitted use or ancillary uses, I know the commission has occasionally struggled a little bit with trails, and if that's a use within open space, and if that's something that I think is really worth the commission taking the time to look at, related to if this is if it's designated as open space and it's got a permitted use and ancillary uses, and those are trails and those are trailheads, I think it is certainly something that would make your life a lot easier and would give us the opportunity to help move along a great program and to do the different things you guys are doing out there in the wilds of Carson City.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Certainly.
2 items. I believe we do have more public comments. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Lindsay and I did look at the definition of open space, so I think the answer is just going to make sure that the definition of open space recognizes that trails and trailheads are part and parcel of open space. We just did the listening tour, and we heard about how much, not just that the open space is of value in this community, but access to the open space is of value. And so I think the definition should recognize that. And we can work on that as part of the Title 18 update.
Perfect. And any further public comment?
Hi, thank you. Denny French, Carson City. I'm sorry I missed your planning commission over this, the workshops. They're very helpful, and the last one that I was at was very informative. This one I'm behind. I didn't realize that they were going to consider separation of the parks and open space. I think it's a good idea. I've been asking for it in the past, but I'm not sure it's in the same form as you've realized it or considering it, so I'll look forward to reading into that. The main thing is that I have concerns about present-day park and who will then be the overseers on structures there, or any kind of issues as far as buildings or coding, or what part will you all play in the oversight of those venues, parks? Right now I have concerns about Centennial Park. I've heard at hearing, and I got everybody's names, but they're all playing in the championship that night, so they all spoke soon. as they could in the open discussion thing was allowed. They talked about the dangers and the hazards and how bad those fields are. And I just wonder how come they were allowed to get to the point where those people that play on it the most are telling us as a community that there's a problem, but somehow parks didn't get that message. When I played ball, we took care of the fields pretty much ourselves. And I'm concerned then with the open space that you're considering to relate to when the drainage situation comes up, because that will be considered part open space and such, who then will help roll into that to make sure things are done very well and such, or that they're going to be kept up. I'm really concerned about changing to any other type of material on a park that is heavily need of real basic care on a real regular basis. And people think, oh, artificial turf is no big deal. Well, if we can't keep our green grass and our infield safe, we've got a problem. And I think it's with either, and I've been told that they've got plenty of staff at parks, and Jennifer Budge can verify that. She says she's got money and people, but those ball players were serious. When they say something's dangerous, I don't think they're going to exaggerate. I walked those fields. I walked the infield. I had my concerns, but I would play on it. We played on worse as kids. But when there's an option to do better, I think we should. But then when you break those two entities up, the parks and the recreation, who then has the oversight as to, and then I'm just a little concerned. So I will look into it, and I'll appreciate anybody's help on getting better understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment? Seeing none.
Based on that public comment, I want to flag for the commission. This is not underlined. I'm sorry about that. But one thing we did change in the tables is you all see a lot of tiny little buildings. They're just these ancillary buildings on public like works projects and stuff. And so what I'm suggesting is that if the building is 2,500 square feet or less, it's just permitted. If it's not changing the use, it's just some shed or something, we can just do it. And if it's more than 2,500 square feet, we'll keep it in the P for a special use permit. So the bigger facilities will come here.
That's your two warehouse. Is that your two warehouse designations?
No, it's in the P, the public zoning districts, and it's under buildings and facilities owned and leased or operated by the city of Carson City, Carson City Unified School District, or any other district, state of Nevada, or the government of the United States. And so it used to say all of that stuff was a special use permit. So I broke out a new category. So if the building is under 2,500 square feet, well, they can just go right to permit.
How about our Connex boxes?
Connex boxes are in normal Title 18. They're not primary use, so they don't appear on this table, but they are addressed in the design standards. And actually on Saturday, I did Title 18, Sunday I did master plan. So on Saturday, I listened to the October 19, 2023 meeting, 5-hour meeting that you had jointly with the board. You talked about Connex boxes, and where you landed was you were okay with them in residential if it was 1 acre or more, and it was painted to be compatible to the main residence. Otherwise, it was in I think the industrial zoning districts, and the other stuff didn't change. So you'll get all that at the end of this week, actually. I'm supposed to get the draft from Dan Yu tomorrow, but I'll save that for my report. In terms of the table of permitted uses, I think given the long day we've had, I'm going to suggest you look at this in your free time. And if you'll each individually give me input, unless you feel like you're ready to do it now. And then I can include your input in the draft that you get for the workshop on the 16th, if that works. You look at, for example, cafeteria, and then it has restaurant in brackets. That's because the use cafeteria has been removed. And if somebody has a cafeteria, we're going to call it a restaurant. So I think the same thing happened with delicatessen. We'll call that a restaurant.
Hope, going back to your last comment, well, how did you settle on 2,500 feet? I'm just curious.
2,500 square feet, it was nothing, it seemed like a reasonable number.
Okay.
And so I'm open to that conversation.
It's a 50 by 50 shed.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so that, unless other people have comments, if you do see something struck out and then it's in brackets, that means that that use is going away and we're going to the use that's in brackets.
Hope, I got two quick things.
Yes.
One of them is that we don't seem to be as consistent with motorcycles as we are with automobiles, as far as all the different brackets and what's allowed. I think if we're going to allow one, we allow the other, and they could, I don't know why they can't be combined. Motorized vehicles.
Okay.
And barbershop and beauty shop, I've had that discussion before. They're essentially the same thing, I think. And we don't treat them the same way.
Would you like to?
Yeah? And the term that I had to look up again, esthetician.
Yes.
Do you know of an esthetician in Carson City that's not attached to a beauty shop?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. All right.
So you've been schooled.
Yeah. I'm done. No more.
If there's nothing else on this, then I'll just have you all give me your comments. Okay. I got yours, Chuck, if it was just those three.
No,
You got more? Okay.
I got lots.
Okay, so Mackenzie Ray, we're frozen. What do we do? Oh, no, but they have to see the cover. There it is. Mackenzie Ray, who you all know, she's in my office, prepared this PowerPoint for me. And I'm really impressed with it. Hope you are. And she's going to do this monthly for you so that you can see what's happening in community development. So what you'll see in our building department, in July, we did $25 million worth of permitting. 15 million was building permit, which means 10,000 was site work and things like that. We had 17 housing starts in July, and to date, as of end of July, we had 216 housing starts. You'll see her graph of the total valuation from the permits, and commercial construction that was permitted in July was Keegan's Dental Office, which will be just shy of 5,000 square feet, a new dental office on G.S. Richards Boulevard, and Central Market got a permit for a new 23,000 square foot grocery store over by CVS on Highway 50. You had 3 applications in, oh, no, that's coming up in September. I'll ask her to switch that to July, so everything's July. For liquor licenses, we issue liquor licenses. So we issued 4 liquor licenses in July. Heidi's Family Restaurant, they decided they wanted to be able to serve mimosas with breakfast, so they have a liquor license now. Don Chepe Mexican Restaurant, that's the new Mexican restaurant at the mall where Francisca's was. Pancho's Tacos is a food truck, and Saltwater Tavern is where Remedies was. So they all received liquor licenses. Code enforcement had 98 cases that opened, and they closed 81 of them. Or 81 cases, I'm not going to say 81 were the same subset of the 98. And we had 82 business licenses issued, and we want to spotlight if there's any kind of interesting business licenses. So Crazy D's Hot Chicken Restaurant on South Carson is where the Pink Elephant was. So they received a business license. So in terms of master plan update, we obviously just had our work session. We'll have a continuation of that work session in October, I think. And my next slide is some upcoming dates. So tomorrow, our master plan consultants are on site for stakeholder meetings. At 5 p.m. tomorrow night at the Staybridge Suites will be a community meeting with the consultants. On September 5th at 5 p.m. will be a community meeting virtually with the consultants of the master plan. On September 16th at Adams Hub, we'll do a Planning Commission workshop on the Title 18 design standards, and I'll give you the table of permitted uses. And I read the design standards again, like I said, on Saturday, and there's some good stuff there. It's the stuff you've been talking about is in there, and it's going to make a difference, and it's going to make things easier and better. On September 25th, you'll have your regular meeting, and that's when you'll do the Title 18 public hearing. So I'm thinking October for the master plan workshop, because then you'll have Title 18 behind you. And then we can also I've scheduled the library for Saturdays in November to be available from 10 to noon for anybody who wants to come in and talk about the master plan. I don't know what your future agenda items are. I forgot to ask. Do you know? Were they? Oh, that's why she put those there. Okay, so it looks like you have 3 applications: the paint booth, the daycare facility, and an RV boat and storage on September 25th. Okay, there we go. But we'll also be doing Title 18. So that will be a busy meeting. And I think that's all I have.
Hope if on that 25th meeting, can we start early or earlier?
Sure, we'll poll the commission, see if we can get a quorum to start earlier.
Yeah, bring food.
Food again? Am I going to run out of money feeding you guys?
You're
all
gonna,
the
well,
time?
the thing is, it's just, question is, when do we expect to get our Title 18 books?
Okay, yes, I meant to tell you that. So Dan Yu is supposed to get me the development standards by noon tomorrow. It's going to be design standards, not 18. But I'm getting you design standards. So there's a lot there, trust me. And so then I'm sending them out to the printer, Minuteman Prints. And so we're hoping we'll have them back by Friday if you want to pick them up on Friday. Otherwise, Monday's a holiday, so it would be Tuesday. So we're getting, and what I can do also is have Mackenzie clean the table of permitted, well, we can just email out the table of permitted uses in a clean version for you.
I would like to request a printed copy of those, even though I don't get printed copies of other meeting items.
Yes, what we'll do is we'll send it out and they'll bind it. Was that good with the master plan to have the binding? So we'll do that so that you all can work through it easily.
Yeah, please, because I noticed today trying to find, we started looking at some of the stuff from 2006 and the stuff from now, and then, the different meetings that we have had, and trying to figure out, okay, what do I bring and what have I looked at and what have I chewed my cabbage 47 times on? So, yeah.
If people come in my office and they don't know why I have all those binders, it's because I can then go back and see everything, when you talked about it, what you said, and I pulled all that out. So I actually had to cross-reference the October 19, 2023 meeting, listen to the whole tape, make sure the version you're getting captured everything you talked about. So we're trying to be thorough.
And I was going to ask for one other thing, is that you guys did the thing for the residential for us, so we knew what was going on all the residential updates. Mackenzie did a great job on that one. Can we have one on the commercial? Because people are always asking us, oh, is that Buffalo Wild Wings really going to be a dental office? That kind of thing, so.
Yes, we can. And the slideshow I just showed you, she had for July, because we're still in August. And so we'll do one of these every month. And what I'll do is, because, I can tell you the valuation of the non-residential stuff or the totality of it, but I think if I just spotlight the interesting commercial stuff, and so that will show up in August. But yes, we will absolutely do that, and that's part of what this program is.
Anything else, commissioners?
Hope, thank you for the meeting today. I
Yes.
thought it was very productive.
I'm going
Good.
to second that.
Well, I'll be in, 4 meetings tomorrow, so we'll keep it going.
Okay, I'd like to ask for an adjournment, motion to adjourn. No? Oh, public comment? Okay.
Denny French, and I just appreciate this program for the master plan, but I really don't think that the advertising is getting quite to some of the communities that you would like it to. People in my community that's Spanish speaking and such haven't quite caught on to the fact that you're just as available and that there are ways for them to communicate with Hope about questions and all of you about concerns, and they just haven't got the word out, and I'm not good at that, so just work on the advertisement. And I think maybe some of the ones I've missed picked up on the Hispanic community's involvement that I didn't get to. And I know it was an outreach by Hope for that. And so continue, please. And people want to be involved. Thank you.
And saying that, Hope, what, you've had 2 meetings at La Tapatia? And, yeah.
And I have another meeting coming up. I believe it's on September 24th, and it's in conjunction with the Lieutenant Governor's office. And we're targeting Hispanic businesses.
Perfect.
And it will be at El Beliar.
Okay, can you let us know about that one?
Yes.
Because I would like to attend that one. Okay. All right, and motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Aye.